Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with me. We are going to have a blast for you today. We have a special guest, one of our kind of frequent guests, El Señor Daniel Cohen from Indivisible Houston. The president of Indivisible Houston is going to be with us a little bit later, but we have a whole lot of other stuff to discuss today. I want to just let you know, Biden was just on TV. He was out there doing a whole lot of pretty much giving it to Trump over what he did last night. And you know what? I am going to play a couple of stuff that he did last night as well. It was kind of interested. I like. Look, say whatever we need to say, right? One of the problems we have that Democrats and to some extent some progressive have had for a long time is that they don't come out and fight. They don't respond immediately. They allow things to fester. And when things fester, they actually become a new reality in people's minds. And what I've been noticing with the Biden campaign is that they are not allowing things to metastasize. They are going out there and they are fighting for every time something comes out, they sort of swat it down right away. I tell you, that is an important thing for us to get done. That is what they seem to be doing. Kudos to the campaign for actually getting that done. Let me just say a quick hello to all the folks that are already in the chat. Bridge MCP. Actually, Bridge MCP, you play a role in the program today. I'm going to tell folks about that in a little bit. Paul Fleming, welcome aboard. Dimitri OG, ¿cómo estás, mi hermano? ¿Cómo estás? No insulting. We don't need to feel insulted. I feel insulted if I do an Asian town hall. I'll not eating stir-fried rice with chopsticks playing Chinese music. I didn't watch the town hall. I just sort of did the outtakes of it. I had a whole lot of other stuff to do. So you may have to call in, Dimitri, and tell me exactly what that statement really means, okay? And Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard as well. Welcome aboard as well, folks. Hey, we're going to have a great show. Now, here's the deal. Last night, town hall, Donald Trump was talking through the gazoo, right? The first clip that I want to show you is a clip to tell all our friends, whether you're on the left or the right, let's stop thinking for this election, left or right, and let's start thinking leadership. Let's start thinking being led appropriately. Let's start thinking you have kids. We have to get an economy going. We have to solve this problem. Listen to this president. And please tell me, first of all, if we can take somebody like this seriously. Okay, check this out.
It's going to disappear. It's going to disappear. I still say it would go away without the vaccine, George, but it's going to go away a lot faster. It would go away without the vaccine? Sure, over a period of time. Sure, with time it goes. And many deaths. And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen. A lot of people don't want to wear masks. There are a lot of people think the masks are not good, and there are a lot of people that, as an example, who are those people? Well, I'll tell you who those people are. Waiters, they come over and they serve you, and they have a mask. And I saw it the other day where they were serving me, and they're playing with a mask. I'm not blaming that. I'm just saying what happens. They're playing with a mask, and so the mask is over, and they're touching it, and then they're touching the plate. That can't be good.
Okay, folks, let's just be clear. That is our president. that is the herd mentality was a Freudian slip, okay? I don't need the funny thing about it is I don't even hit him hard for that slip. That's a slip that I would make. I think a lot of us would make that slip. Herd mentality or herd immunity. You know, we talk about herd mentality a whole lot, so a lot of us would make that mistake. The issue is that he does not understand herd mentality. I mean, see, I just did it. He does not understand herd immunity, numero uno, and numero dos, that he's so flippant about, it will go away, etc. That's not all. The thing about it is, if that's the way you think about the disease, that is the way you treat it. That's the way you think. His last message that we printed scientifically about the forest, etc., last couple of days ago. All of this is probative. It tells you where his mind is. But let's talk herd immunity. Herd immunity is generally spoken of in the context of people having been vaccinated with the contagion or some permutation thereof or some piece thereof, so that enough of the people have that immunity so that the disease is not prevalent. So those who can't take a vaccine will still be protected for the mere fact that so many people are already immune to it. But developing natural herd immunity by letting people get sick, I mean, like saying, let's just everybody get the measles, let's everybody get the chicken pox. It's simply crazy, because in those times where herd immunity took place, it was sort of a selection, natural selection. It was a time when we said we'll allow natural selection to take over because we didn't have any other choice. And the people who were susceptible to that disease but could not solve it on their own simply die. So that die out of the herd, and it makes the herd therefore stronger to anything else that comes out, because that particular trait is gone. Well, we've developed a better thing about humanity since then. We've become more human. Even if the quote unquote pro-lifers haven't gotten there yet, we've decided to be more human. And how do we become more human? We said, if science can solve a problem, then people don't have to die needlessly for something that could pass. Now, trying to go for herd immunity is actually, in effect, in our new society, herd immunity is equivalent to voluntary manslaughter. Because what you're saying is, in as much as we have preventative ways to stop this thing or to prevent deaths, we are going to allow it because we want commerce. We are going to allow it because we want to open schools. We are going to allow it because we want to open bars. So that is a stance that says we take economy, we take business over humanity. We take the rich over the poor, because the rich never has to go shop where the other people have to shop. So we have to understand exactly what is happening here. So this herd immunity thing here is not it's there to open up the economy. It's there to say, let's have Big Ten football. It's here to say all these things. We want the economy open at all costs. If we lose, and I think somebody just put 4%, if we lose 4% of those people who get the disease, so be it. And given that everybody's going, if we go ahead and open it up, let's say we go ahead and everybody say, to hell with it, we're just going to go out there. Most of us are going to get coronavirus. And if most of us get coronavirus, what is 4% of 330 million? That is what tells you how many people will die. Over 12 million Americans will die if we do that. I mean, it's just numbers. All these things are just numbers. And when you have someone of your friends on the right tell you otherwise, you tell them those numbers. And, well, we're going to go into something that Breach brought up that I want to talk about in a little bit. So let me hurry up here. I want to show you the other video. Because before we get into the interview, I want to talk about this a bit. Check this out now as far as how many lies in that short town hall. And this guy didn't amount to count them up all. Check this out.
There was just so much lying, Don. I'm going to go quickly here, so literally just stop me whenever you need to. He said again, Democrats won't protect people with pre-existing conditions. That is nonsense. As a voter told him, Democrats created those protections. He insisted he didn't praise China on the virus. He did so repeatedly. We know that. He claimed that nobody knew at the time he was praising China that seniors were especially susceptible to the virus. That was one of the first things we learned out of China and out of Italy and out of the U.S. He claimed that Biden said in March that the pandemic was, quote, totally over-exaggerated. I can find no evidence that Biden ever said that. He said that Winston Churchill was kind of like him playing down stuff because he went on rooftops in London during the Nazi bombing and told people everything's going to be good. Churchill did not speak from the rooftops and did not say everything's going to be good. He warned of suffering and danger. Trump said that he fired James Mattis. Mattis resigned. He said that protesters took over 20% of Seattle. It was a 6-block area, nowhere close to 20%. He took credit again for sending in the National Guard in Minneapolis, saying that this happened after a week and a half of violence there. It was not even close to a week and a half. It was days, and the Democratic governor is the one who activated the Guard. He said he essentially repealed Obamacare by getting rid of the individual mandate. Not even close to true. The Medicaid expansion, pre-existing conditions protections, other stuff remains. He said the cupboards were empty of ventilators. His administration admits he inherited about 16,000 from Obama. He did his usual false boast about so-called bans on travel from China and Europe. They were not complete bans. He said stocks are owned by, quote, everybody. Just about half of Americans own stocks. He repeated his nonsense about testing causing cases. Testing merely reveals and helps fight cases. He said that Biden has agreed to a Bernie Sanders style socialized healthcare. He fought Sanders on that issue. He has very much not agreed to a Sanders-style plan. And Don, this is a preliminary list. I have hours of fact-checking tonight to do because there's even more than this. So this was just a fire hose of lying, again, from the president.
That was just a fire hose of lying. How can you listen to a president that way? Now, the people in the right there, they protect all of that. I was listening to Fox News earlier today or yesterday, and somebody came on and said, "Oh, he was ambushed at the town hall." No, he wasn't ambushed at all. He was just asked to tell the truth, and he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that, telling the truth. Now, to those of my right-wing brothers and sisters out here in the room, how do you tolerate that? How do you take him seriously? Just because of the ideological divide? That is where we have to have conversations. That is where we have to start talking to each other. And that brings me to the new point. There's an article that it is funny that Bridge earlier today sent a notice to an article. But before I go into her article, I got this stuff in my feed, and it was a Commons Dreams article that came out. And that Common Dream article said, groundbreaking study shows deep listening over 100 times more effective in winning undecided voters away from Trump. And when I saw that article, and it was early this morning, I saw the article, I started to smile, right? Because that is the basic tenet of the new book that I wrote, which was, okay, we really have to start listening. And in the interview that I did, I was speaking about learning how to listen to other folks. Not necessarily that you agree with them, but learning how to listen to people so that you can actually understand where they're coming from. And if you saw some of the discussion I had with, I see my friend here in the room, Masticator. What I wanted to attempt to engage Masticator on is in an honest conversation about why he thought much of what we progressives are saying are just simply lies and we don't care, etc. And I wanted to listen to see how he came up with those particular points of view and what he really thought. Again, it's a learned thing. It's so hard when we are polarized because externalities cause us to be polarized, right? The people that are pulling the strings, they want us polarized because if we are fighting each other, then those few on the top can actually continue being at the top even though they don't deserve what they have. They're working on what we provided to them. So it was interesting that, like I said, I've been with the Coffee Party and some other organizations, Bridge Alliance, that's a CEO interviewed me for that thing. And those are the things that we were learning all together, and that was having to do with listening. Okay, so afterwards, this article comes out and it says, research shows respectful, non-judgmental conservations are able to move voters where many other tactics have failed, producing meaningful increases in the voters in Biden's vote. I want to read 5 sentences from my book, right? And it goes like this. Check this out. It says, and here's the book. It's worth it. I says, as a progressive, I have convinced myself of several points that allow me to engage the right fearlessly with humility, civility, and respect. 1. Assume most people, irrespective of ideology, are inherently good. I give everyone the benefit of the doubt initially. I listen intently and intentionally, and I make the person that I am trying to engage fully aware that I am not just hearing and waiting to respond, but that I am really, really listening. And lastly, I am more interested in that person voting in their own interests than for them breaking out as a converted person. I am not trying to change someone's party, culture, religion. And that's what I put in there. And the reason why I did that is because I tell people all the time, I don't want you to become a Democrat. You can. I don't want you to become a liberal, a progressive, a left winger like me. No, you don't have to. But when you go behind that voting booth, I want you to think about your mother, your father, your brother, your cousin, those that are doing well, those that are not doing so well, and start to think, what is it that I can do personally with my vote that is going to make life better for that other person? So after I read this, it says, after I read this article at Common Dreams, I saw a little message on our site, and it was from our great listener here, Bridge MCP. And the article she passed me was, Why Facts Don't Change Our Minds, right? And it really, one of the tenets of the article is that if you don't like me, if you just don't like me, you think I'm full of it, then you are likely not to listen to anything I have to tell you, even if you know that what I'm saying is true. The one thing that you are likely to do as well, right, is to say, well, you know what? It doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to block it out because I just don't like this guy. So one of the important things, right? Oops, I have the wrong screen up. One of the important things, right, is for you to, like I said in the book, look and try to gain that person's respect. All my right-wing listeners here, all my left-wing listeners, that's the most important thing I want to say. And by the way, I just put the link to the book in there. The first thing that I'm putting in there that I like to say, folks, is I want to let folks that are here listening, that are to me, that are talking here to us, that's having this conversation, to understand, first of all, that I'm grateful. But number 2, more so than grateful, that I make every attempt to really get into what the beliefs are, what your beliefs are, right? And in doing so, I get that, AVQ. We'll talk about that at the end of the program. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but there's a balance. There is a balance. There's really a balance. So you try to get folks to say, all right, because he listens to me, because he respects me, and because he just doesn't throw away my points, I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt and actually listen to him and not just hear him for a response. And if all of us do that, we would have defeated the guys that are pulling the strings upstairs, because there are people that have a vested interest. They have no right lurch. No right lurch. There's no right lurch. Again, the thing about it is, here's the funny thing about it. If you forget about ideology, and I mentioned this a lot in the book, if you don't talk ideology, if you go out and talk to people and just tell them, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we do X, Y, and Z, in a format devoid of the polarization of, let's say, the people that are pulling the strings, you'd be surprised how many people or how many people want to do what you're talking about. And then when they have the freedom to do it, knowing that they don't have to really change who their friends are, you can actually go into the ballot box in secret. When you vote, it's between you and your God, right? Or whatever you want to call it. You can do that. And that is what it's all about. No, masticator is not about being deluded. I mean, it may be a delusion for you. And like AVQ says, there are some people that are so far gone that they just put up that permanent wall and they will die with the sword and simply not change. And that is just because that is how they were designed. They are not going to change even as wrong as they know that they are, or as wrong as they've been proven. But other people will listen if they feel that you are worth listening to. But anyhow, let's go ahead and so Breach, thank you for that article. I'm going to read it in more detail after the show. I was kind of preparing this show beforehand. So let's go ahead and listen to Brother Daniel Cohen from Indivisible Houston. We had a good chat. That is a pretty important chat. So let's check that out. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis. I am with one of our regulars, Daniel J. Cohen, president of Indivisible Houston. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm doing well. It's day 186 in quarantine, so I've got a little bit of experience at this point. I feel like we're all grizzled veterans of this era.
Yeah, but you know what? It's going to build character. What it's going to tell us is, we were the ones who did what we knew we had to do, and as much as it is a sacrifice, we did it last night. I was going through my Twitter feed. And there's this thing about these young, and what hurts most, it's a bunch of young people running through Target with their take off your mask, and and I'm sitting down there and just thinking, my God, I would expect that of the people my age, not your age. You guys actually understand science.
No, it's true. Like, yeah, they're playing Twisted Sister or something like that on the guy's phone or something, So it's, someone pointed out in Indonesia there was a small group of people who didn't want to take their masks off, and they put them up to hard labor. And it sounds a lot like what the right always says, right? That they compare it to other countries. Well, in other countries they do this. The way that this death cult would be treated in a lot of places if they were under someone who was a little bit more hardlined, like Trump treats the very people that he demonizes on a regular basis, would be completely different. And the fact that you juxtapose that with forced hysterectomies and ICE detention centers, that it took a nurse actually blowing the whistle on that, just shows a complete disconnection, a complete lack of awareness and lack of interest in any education related to atrocities that are going on in favor of a privileged, high-end, snooty, yet at the same time uninformed understanding of a historic era in history when we have a global pandemic going on. It's not just that they don't know what's going on, it's that they're being goaded to not understand what's going on by high forces so that people can profit off of it. It's sad.
And it's sad because you just said the magic word. Other very few people are profiting off of this. And they continue. It's willful ignorance is a dangerous thing because these are all very smart people. And, it's just like I said, my brothers and sisters on the right, they're smart. Why do they allow themselves to? I have a relative that is graduated first in their class, and they fell for the Kool-Aid. But that is willful.
It is. No, it very much like there's not a. That I reference this sometimes when I see this stuff because it reminds me of Ben Carson, right? You get this guy who's he's a neurosurgeon, but some of the stuff he says is completely detached from the world and the way things work. And you get the similar there years ago. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan like me, Egberto,
yes,
but
I used to watch it.
There's this scene years ago where George and Kramer are outside talking, and they're pointing out this guy has double parked them in, and he says, that guy could be a rocket scientist. He could have landed a man on the moon, but he's bad at parking. He's smart with rockets, but dumb with parking. I feel like I see people all the time that are smart with rockets and dumb with parking. It's like, and COVID just really brings it out of people that they can think through complex financial algorithms, but they think that a virus is fake and the epidemiologists are lying. It's very strange.
It is amazing. But, last night we had a little chat, and one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you because, I always like to hear your insights on things. And I was telling you, we are going to have to really start given, I don't know if the question, the thing is, given some leeway to more progressives is the answer, because a lot of times we come across very tight or very pure, very altruistic in the things that we're doing. And, we know that Walmart is doing a bad thing. So we're telling people don't go to shop at Walmart. And you had some stories as well to tell. So, I mean, I wanted to kind of explore a little bit more on that, why it is that, I know what a lot of us believe, but why I don't think we need to hold people to this tenet that, well, if you are shopping at Walmart, or if you're shopping, if you're going to Chick-fil-A, that somehow you're no longer progressive, you're doing all the wrong things because you're supporting these bad people. Why don't you kind of elaborate on that for me?
Well, I think individual choices are fine. I think a lot of times they are somewhat cosmetic, and I do think that we fail to go the deeper level when it comes to them. And we kicked it around. I mean, it's going to take structural change. It's going to take
Right.
systemic change and policy change. It's not going to come from one person doing something individually. With you look at like the Chick-fil-A example is a good example, right? Where you have
I love
this.
that one. I hadn't known that. Explain that to the people, because that's a solid one actually.
Well, I think right. So, like most people, a lot of people on the left know that like Chick-fil-A's CEO and Chick-fil-A's leadership has beliefs that are anti-choice and anti-gay, and so as a way of showing solidarity for those causes, they stay away from Chick-fil-A. Speaking of which, I think that that's fine. I think like if as long as you leverage it right, like it's fine to do that kind of thing. I do think, though, that it's kind of funny when you put it alongside the premise that a lot of people have that there's no ethical consumption under capitalism in the first place, that now you're taking a specific ethical consumption stand. And then in terms of Chick-fil-A specifically, you're looking directly at competitors. If you say, for example, don't buy any fast food chicken, well, you have a little bit firmer ground. But if you say buy Popeyes instead of Chick-fil-A, then you run into another problem, because now you're patronizing a business that pays its workers $3 or $4 less, so that you can take a stance on another issue that's a progressive issue like choice or LGBTQ rights, and things. So it gets very difficult to sort of start threading these commercial needles. I think if you want to take action and economic action, I think that there is a lot of room for economic activism. And I do think there are some things that are like a very clear line, right, where you can stand up against like private prisons. Okay,
Hmm.
that's a real, or like products that come from private prisons, stuff like that. You can start drawing those lines. My company's moved away from oil and gas. We just decided we're not going to service that. Our ability to communicate is not going to be used for that. We don't expect that it's going to hurt the oil and gas industry, but we took just a clear stand just for the purpose of taking a clear stand. And I think that that's fine if people want to make individual choices, but I think we could think a little bit deeper about it. And I think that we also could take other more powerful actions. And I think also acknowledging those other more powerful actions need to be taken is important too. Sometimes it even can unintentionally prop up cosmetic progress, which, as you and I know, cosmetic progress always replaces real progress. So
Right.
if you're applauding a large corporation because it says we're not going to allow people to open carry in our stores, or we've put a rainbow flag on top of our store or something like that, but they're still underpaying their workers, then or like, hey, look, we wrote Black Lives Matter in the end zone, or something like that. Like it kind of misses the bigger picture too. And so I think it is important to be really careful when it comes to putting all of this weight on individual choice in our activism, as opposed to pushing for systemic policy changes.
And I think that is so right. I want to kind of elaborate a little bit on the Chick-fil-A, Popeyes difference, because I think that is so important. Because we go ahead and let's say we even have a successful boycott of Chick-fil-A, and those people who would have bought those chicken sandwiches at Chick-fil-A go buy it at Popeyes. In effect, what we're saying is, because Chick-fil-A doesn't do something morally that we like, we are actually reducing the amount of income within that community, that poor community, because Chick-fil-A pays its people $3 to $4 more per hour, which is probably 50, 60% more than Popeyes. and which is which, papa, that person doesn't get to. So I mean, the other thing is I use as well is, my wife goes and she shops at Walmart to get certain things, and there's a time I was like, we shouldn't be supporting Walmart, etc. And I noticed one thing, right?
Hmm.
As an activist, both of us are activists as well. In fact, I think most of us spend more of our time doing in the activist world.
Right.
I have to minimize costs because of the activist model, right? So if I am going to, let's say, shop at Kroger's for something that costs a lot less at Walmart, it means I have to raise that much more from, and then, so you get into this moral dilemma. And so I started to say, we have to fight for exactly what we fight for, which is systemic change. We can't ask the individual because you put yourself at a disadvantage. Let's give another example. The right wing opponent that does what we do, that have the right wing radio show, the right wing blogger, the right wing, he can go ahead and shop at Walmart because that's what he believes in. He can go ahead and do all the things that, that makes things less expensive for him. And in doing so, make him a more effective communicator because he has more resources left back to communicate. I gave
No,
you go ahead.
no, I mean, they definitely have a structural advantage because of the shape of the corporatist system that we have set up. I was running a number, by the way, that when I looked down there on my phone, what I was doing was, $7.25 an hour versus $10 an hour. I mean, you're looking at like $5,000 over the course of a year for somebody. And if you're someone who's in that bracket, I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's
Exactly.
for a lot of people, that's all rent, or, that can be all groceries and gas or something like that. I mean, it's basic sort of needs to live. I think if people want to look at economic impact, the thing that we should really be encouraging, if people are really interested in that, is organization of workplaces.
Yes.
It's it's organized protest of
Hmm.
given locations, right? Like you see with the baby jail and 419 Emancipation here in Houston,
Right.
and other places like that, or outside of Core Civic and Core Civic and Geo group sort of detention centers and things like that. It's what Bernie Sanders did when he went and spoke at the shareholders meeting for Amazon, and some of the revolution theologist priests where they do that at the big banks and other giant corporations out in the Northeast. I think that like buying one share of stock and going and burning the shareholders meeting to the ground is great activism.
Yes.
Like there's a lot we can do in terms of economic impact, and I do think even individual action, like I said, it's great. The most radical thing you can do in this day and age is grow your own food. I
Yes.
think that that's like a setting up community gardens, setting up exchanges, coming up with craft fairs that are like local driven and things like that, and like definitely like holding your purse on a given day, like not purchasing things, and general strikes and all that stuff. Definitely the economy like is ripe for disruptive activism that can change things so that people get more of the money, and these extremely wealthy, deep-pocketed people who have just been hoarding all of the cash this whole time, and all of their enablers in the government like Trump and Greg Abbott here in Texas, and Dan Patrick, who's the actual governor and bullies the governor around here, and all those guys, like we can definitely change the calculus on them.
Right.
When we haven't seen a lot of that in the United States as of recently. I think that we're gonna see more of it if things continue to go along this way, because it's not like it's entirely new. Well, you'll see 1,000 or 2,000 workers throw down their apron at the same time. But I think that we do have to bridge the gap, and it can hurt us if we're trying to organize surrounding economics and we go in on an individual choice level, because I don't think that it's the most accessible way for us to talk to somebody in the first place. That you're going to tell someone in a small town not to buy baby formula from the only store that's within 30 miles of that town to begin
Right.
with. They got somebody's got a car that's beat up. They got 2-3 jobs, and they're already like going back and forth, or maybe they're taking a bus back and forth, like the woman in Roger and Me, like the Flint, the woman who lives in Flint, Michigan, who's
Yeah.
taking a bus all the time. I mean, going to a local store for a town that's nearby, it's not even their town, right, or something like that, is just off the table. The economics has made it so that it's impossible for these folks to do that. So if you want to evangelize to people and talk to people about what's going on in the system, if you lead with that, then you're going to run into trouble. Whereas if you lead with, hey, what's going on at your workplace? What do you need actually right now? Here's a community garden. Maybe this is a way that, in very limited free time, it's down the street from you. Here are some things that we can do to make things better. Not only does it make it better for you, make things more affordable for you, and create stronger community, but it's also taking action on the environment as a whole. And so, you're helping your siblings out in California, you're helping your siblings out in Oregon, and they're going through similar pains, and we're all kind of people, and we can make the world better. I think that's a much stronger pitch for people who are unfortunately on the wrong end of an economic system that has punished them just for being born, than to tell them, where they should get their chicken. I just think it's a lot more powerful to go at it that way.
And it's not only more powerful, it's also a lot more respectful, right? I mean, and to put it bluntly, it's a lot more respectful. I think that is so important, because, and I think that is where many times, Daniel, progressives sometimes are a bit rigid when it comes to certain issues. And I think that's why I enjoy talking to you, that you can actually paint the picture on the wall and then say, how can I make that picture better? Or how can I make someone who doesn't know how to read that picture, or read that art? What am I saying? Picture, read that art. Yesterday I did the show, and there's an article out of Common Dreams that followed a new report that came out that says, the title of the article was $2.5 trillion theft. Study shows richest 1% of Americans have taken 50 trillion from bottom 90% in recent decades. And in 1 year, we're talking about $50 billion, that if you go ahead and you calculate that people have created better productivity, they have done all these things, that somehow none of that went back. I think a lot of those issues lay right here, that we can't find the appropriate narrative to go out there and tell people, you don't have to stand for this. After all, it is you who do the work. You who are, those guys at the top. And I know it's sort of cliche and repetitious, but when you see it in big numbers, you really understand what's going on. Your thoughts?
I think when you see it in big numbers, it shows you something. I think when you see it on a day-to-day, it shows you something too. Not in that individual choice sense, but in terms of the individual story that gets told, right? That we can, so you kind of need both, right? You need to explain to people that there's millions of people who can't get access to healthcare coverage for no reason other than the fact that somebody wants to buy another golden yacht, right? But you also have to kind of talk to people about what's going on in their individual life and say, how's your insurance company treating you? And that starts to really show a picture too. Some of this stuff will come to a head. People are going to have conversations about it. I don't know what the future holds. I know that we have to continue to organize and talk about it. But I don't know exactly what the future will hold, because there have been giant empires that have gotten away with stuff like this for a really, really long time. And sometimes the only thing that causes them to fall apart is another empire.
Right.
And so we don't, there's no guarantee at the end of the day. I don't mean this to be an uplifting thought, because it's not, but there's no guarantee, right, that we'll kind of get over on the other side of it. But I do have hope that people will continue to organize. I am seeing some really good organizers that are starting to have these conversations. I see that it seems to have flagged a little bit, but the concept of UBI, at least over the course of the year, has enjoyed more popularity than it's ever enjoyed in the history of politics. It wasn't even an idea that was on the table until the last few years, and now it's on the table in mainstream political dialogues a little bit more. And I think that there's an opportunity for broad coalitions to be able to support some of these ideas. So, we'll see. We're about to hit we've already been through a chaotic period. It's going to continue for a little bit here, and it might even spike, in the next, we might even see like a spike very soon when it comes to some of that. But the other side of chaos is that I do think that it shows a lot of people how things actually work. And when someone says like jobs, and all of a sudden your town is like isolated because of political turmoil, artificially created by wealthy people, I think that we might see some change based on that.
I mean,
So,
it is so important. And now you talk about we don't know what it looks like on the other side. We don't know what it looks like on the other side a lot of times because we have to be formative. We have to be the ones that make what it looks like on the other side. And that's what I try to tell people. If we are effective enough, we will. Now, that is where coming into something like this pandemic, I did another show a few weeks ago that said the depression will not be televised. Right now, the truth of the matter is that we are in a depression. If you take a look at the numbers and compare them to 1929, there are a lot of these numbers that are worse. Now, one of the things that we don't have is we don't have the soup lines. We have antiseptic food lines where people line up in these big parking lots at these big stadiums to collect food. I mean, which in 29 you saw these long soup lines, which maybe are more effective visually. When you see these big lines of cars with nicely packed food, it almost looks like a sports event. So it doesn't have the gravity that you see with somebody going through a soup line. So I mean, there's a whole lot that I think we have to start to put out, because I mean, I don't know if people realize this. What people are doing is, by having all these things seem so antiseptic, you don't have to make structural change. There's enough food in the country. There's enough to give away food in the country. So it's not hurting the corporations to do what they're doing. What really hurts them is increasing the people's salary, reducing the work week, and all these things that we really need to do as productivity increases so that we have a more equitable distribution of resources. But we don't do that because it's easier to keep the structure and have what we have is antiseptic slavery, right? Those of us who are still working, or exploited as best they can to keep a whole lot of other people unemployed because we can service them with food. We're not going to give them money because that's going to be a bit, but we'll give them just whatever it takes to sustain them. Those are the things we have, I think, to put in a manner that everybody can see themselves as a possibility of being there.
you're definitely right. It's like it's the same thing when you're in traffic in a car, right? And you get really mad at another car. It doesn't dawn on you as a person in there, right? So definitely the visual of a long car, it's gonna, a long car line is gonna evoke less empathy than a long bread line or something like that. Some of the other things that are coming to a head, though, right, is people are getting evicted, and you're starting to see that national papers are covering Houston and other places, right, where people are getting tossed out of their housing. And some of these folks, there's a guy named Gary Gates who won a special election for the state legislature here. He's the opponent of Lise Markowitz, and in the Chronicle, they covered that he is a slumlord. He's
100 evictions.
100 evictions, right, over the course of the pandemic, and his response is basically that it was perfectly legal. And that's a problem, Gary. You guys have legalized robbing people of what little possessions they have, and you've legalized giving it to people who have a lot more money, like you. And not only do you have the money, but you also sit in the legislature so that when that legislative session comes up, you can help all your donor class buddies get away with all of it, right? And so we've got that going on. We've got the COVID healthcare crisis going on, where people are that's another way that people who have less money in their pocket are getting punished, just for not having money. We've got the cash bail system. It's a huge fight. Some guy sends me an email. I got in a fight. I mean, and since I can curse on your show, right? So I can we don't have to worry about the 7 dirty words. But this guy sends me an email that says, murder victim killed by a guy who's out on his 6th bond, and it has a little thumbs down. Right. I don't know how I wound up on this guy's list, but I'm going to tell you, Egberto, the exact thing that I sent back to him was, take me off your list, you Willie Horton ad running wannabe motherfucker. That was that's what I sent him.
You were mad.
I was really, really mad, and I got it. Anyway, I won't go into a ton of it. I got an email back from them, and finally I was like, I don't consent to you contacting me, stop it, basically, right? But I mean, that I think that there was a disconnect, right? Because what I got back was something like, well, maybe you'll be nicer next time just because we disagree on politics. it's very basic. If you send me something demonizing people based on money, based on race, I'm going to send you something nasty. This is not a political disagreement. That is a basic disagreement over how people should be treated or how people should be respected or disrespected. I put it on par with if I said something nasty about your mom or something like that, like except everyone's mom, right? I mean, it's like it's the utmost sort of disrespect. Point is, I think that maybe the depression won't be televised, and maybe these food lines that are executed via vehicle as opposed to on foot are not going to carry the same visual, but some of the stuff looks the same. And when people wind up out on their stoop with all their stuff, especially in an environment where you're supposed to be wearing a mask and you're not supposed to be without housing and that without that
Where they want you locked into your home, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things are extra dangerous. And then what? Are you supposed to find one of the limited jobs now, and then you go in, and then what? You live on the street in the middle of COVID. I mean, it's they are doing things that are going to affect people who right? And so the only question then is, who is going to be blamed for that? And they're going to spin it to try to blame, I don't know, some fake cabal of billionaires that like eat children or something, apparently.
Or even the people themselves for not having a job. Or
right.
Yeah, or the other thing that well, in the case of the right, what they want to do is they want to make it seem they want to first convince you that, let's say, this COVID thing is nothing more than a cold or something, and you are lazy for wanting to stay home. You're using the mask as an excuse. They're setting up a whole lot of narratives in the event that Trump wins, that they can get this economy going again at all costs, meaning your life. I mean, these are such important concepts. Now, I think what I try to do, and what I'm hoping others do, is that no other European country that has some sort of a good social safety net either comes close to the unemployment that we're having, comes close to the level of poverty, or even have something called evictions that are going on in these times. And most Americans talk about us being the best. We are the best. We are the bastion of the world, with all these things that are occurring, when the people we want to should be looking up to us are doing things so much better. It is something that I think the only reason it plays is that most Americans are unaware. They're working so hard, they're so now under stress, that they don't know these things. And if we can get that message out, if we can talk to people and say things can really be better, it can be, I think we can make a difference. We're coming to the end of our time, Senor Daniel. Why don't you give me a one of your standard inspirational statements?
Look, if you want to figure out how you can get involved in what's going on in the Houston area, you can go to indivisiblehouston.org. We also accept, of course, if you want to fund what's going on in the Houston area, no donation is too large or too small. And so if you're in another area and you want to make an impact here in the capital of oil and gas, where we're constantly fighting an uphill battle and swinging for Goliath's shin, that's your opportunity to do it. I also want to say that forced sterilization is a form of genocide, and what we saw from ICE is nothing short of that. Abolish ICE, abolish CBP, and defund these folks until they get their stuff together into a system that recognizes people's humanity. If you're not calling your representatives and demanding that of them, and I'm not just talking about Congress, but at the state, at the municipal level, at the county level, ask your local dog catcher down the street what they think about ICE abolition. Now is the time to do it. We know that there are bills in Congress from Representatives Jayapal and Mark Pocan. We know that representatives such as Sylvia Garcia and Al Green here in Houston and other representatives around the United States have already called for those bills. And if you're not putting this stuff on your radar, if you're not holding them accountable for following through on this right now, then that's a huge fight that needs to be fought, and they need your voice on the table. So I know that you have a big progressive audience, Egberto. I hope that people take the time to talk to the representatives about ICE abolition. I can't stress that enough. I know that wasn't really what we talked about today, but again, forced sterilization is a form of genocide, period. And we're seeing that in private detention centers that service ICE. And a nurse, a woman stuck her neck out to make sure that the rest of us know that. And we need to honor that. We need to respect that. We need to respect the people who are mistreated and abused, but in our name, and say that we're not going to allow it and we're not going to stand for it. So again, you want to get in touch with me, it's indivisiblehouston.org. abolish ICE. It's lovely to see you, Egberto. I appreciate you, man.
Man, let me tell you, thank you very much, Daniel, for having been here on Politics Done Right. Folks, so please do remember, visit indivisiblehouston.org and please contribute there as well. There are a lot of organizations that are really trying to make that difference that we need to make. Indivisiblehouston.org. And Daniel J. Cohen, thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hey, I just got me a super chat from Michael Joshua. Michael Joshua, thank you for that super chat on YouTube. And anybody on YouTube, you can help us out by just clicking on that join button to become an official member of the Politics Done Right crew on YouTube. Or you can go ahead and do a super chat like Michael Joshua has just done. That would be helpful in keeping us active, going, and all of that. I want to give a call out to Roberto Lewis. Roberto Lewis grew up with me. We played music together in the Dynamites back in Panama, and Roberto is one of my great supporters out. Oh, well, a lot of you in here are my supporters, but the reason I wanted to call out Roberto is Roberto supports Politics Done Right on every damn platform. On YouTube, he's a subscriber on Patreon. He's a subscriber. He buys the products. He buys the books. That is, let me tell you, that is what a real brother, a real friendship is for somebody who knows, hey, we got to get this stuff going. I know you don't like being called out a whole lot, brother, but I had to call you out because yesterday I was going through stuff and I saw Roberto popped up and I'm like, damn it, Roberto, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But he's one of our wonderful supporters. Of course, there's all of you guys in here as well. Norman, everybody else, Bruce, everybody else, MC, Bridge, everybody out here that supports. I really appreciate you guys. This is your show. This is why we can do what we do, because of you. And when I tell you it's your show, it's your show. If you've got something to say, just like Daniel from Indivisible Houston had something to say, I'm like, hey, guy, we got to talk. Come on the show and put it out there, because that is how we are going to make a difference. Everybody having a voice, having a conversation, being able to know that you're always going to be listened to. And I'm not only talking about my lovely progressive people in this audience, I'm also talking about my right-wing brothers, because whether you believe it or not, I love you guys too, man, because I'm saying, for me not to love my right-wing brothers and sisters is to be able to say that the plutocracy has won. I want people to start to understand that. A lot of folks give me a lot of hell that I give time to folks on the right. And I tell them, why the hell won't I do that? If I believe what I preach, if you get my book, and notice I'm always plugging my book. We're trying to survive here. I'm plugging my book. As I see it, class, that's the other book. It's worth it. The reason why I feel a necessity that we have to be in touch and keep up with everybody, right? If I am to believe everything that I say, which I do, and that is that many times we are compromised by those on top to keep power, then I understand that things like racism, things like all the isms are not necessarily natural. They're used, and even those that are somewhat natural, they're used to sort of bring us apart. They're used as a tool so that they can stay in control. If I honestly believe that. Oh, thank you very much for reading the book, Michael Joshua. And thank you for saying the book is, you see, Michael Joshua says the book is a bomb. I got the link up there, folks. Go ahead and get the book. So here is the deal. We have to know that if they have messages that are plugging into the right to have them do certain things and plugging into the left for certain things, if we hate on each other, right, they win. But if we prevent that from happening, if I make sure that nothing Masticator tells me is going to have me hate Masticator, if nothing that Mike Cisak tells me is going to allow me to want to strangle Mike Cisak for sometimes putting me in that mode that, Mike Cisak, how can you think that, brother? If I can teach myself that and understand that is coming from elsewhere, if I can get that, Tank 28 that's giving me a hard time right now. If I can go ahead and look at Tank 28 and say, Tank, there's nothing that you're going to tell me, brother, that's going to have me not like you, brother. You see what I'm saying? And if we do that, we'll screw them up there at the top. And then we can really start looking into how to create that egalitarian society that we want to create. So therefore, in November 4th, when Masticator and Tank 28 comes back to our show, after we've proven that it's going to work and that we win, I am going to have the same attitude to my brothers and sisters and say, welcome. Welcome. So, folks, if you are there inside of our YouTube, go ahead and hit that join. Become a member. But also, you can also do what Roberto has done and do the full Monty. And here we go. You can become a Patreon going to politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, Patreon. You can go to PayPal. Go to politicsdoneright.com/PayPal, politicsdoneright.com/PayPal. You can also, for those of you who are not on YouTube right now, but that would go for that cheap YouTube subscription that we have, you can go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. And to go at our store, people, to go at our store, we have some good stuff at the store. That is politicsdoneright.com/ hit the return /store, which is here. You see that? Hey, check that out. Politics Done Right t-shirt. Hey, you know what we have? We have face mask. If you go to YouTube, you can see our face mask with the I support independent media and all of that. Actually, if you go to YouTube, we have a merchant chain on YouTube that does all that kind of stuff as well. Anyhow, folks, we're coming close to the end of the program. Let me tell all of you guys hi again. The ones that haven't been here. Tank 28, welcome aboard. Michael Cisak, welcome aboard. Michael, you've been quiet lately. I know you've been hiding in the room, but you've been quiet lately. Tank 28, Bridge MCP. Bridge is featured today. She provided us with some articles that everybody should read. I had that on the screen earlier today. Let's see who else is here. Para ver quién más está aquí con nosotros. ¿Quién más está aquí con nosotros? Let's see. Bridge NCP. I got, para ver, Kathy. Let's see, is it Kathy? Pascal. Kathy Pascal, thank you for being here. AVQ. Michael Joshua, thank you for that super chat, man. All of that helps the cause. Let's see who else is here. Bridge MCP, I got you already. Let's see. I hate when I miss people. Norman Reynolds, welcome aboard. I don't see Bruce in here today, but Bruce, thank you for all you do for not only Politics Done Right, but also for KPFT 90.1 FM here in Houston, which is our community radio station. Sister Michaels, or Slater Michaels, welcome aboard. Slater Michaels, welcome aboard. Let's see. Tank 28, you and that MAGA 2020. Still love you, though. Don't worry. It's not going to be MAGA 2020. All right, let's see. Who else is here? Troy Astro, welcome aboard. ¿Quién más está aquí? Roberto Luis, mi hermano de Panamá. Paul Fleming, welcome aboard. Masticator. We're going to keep talking, Masticator. We're going to keep talking. All right, let's see. Who else am I missing? Okay. Let's see. Claire Johnson, how you doing, Claire? Welcome aboard. Who else is here? Dimitri OG, mi hermano favorito. ¿Cómo estás? And of course, Michael Rudnin. Our researcher is, let's just call Michael Rudnin our researcher in chief. Michael, we're going to have to name you the lead of the posse, man. Mike Cisak says I had to pick a second job because your media fear porn has killed the beef market prices. Why didn't you talk to me about that later on, Mr. Cisak? We'll talk about that in the show tomorrow. Come back to the show tomorrow if you're not working, and let's talk a little bit about that. In fact, I would like you to call in because I want to know exactly what you're talking about. Anyhow, folks, my name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.